Before we get to the episode, if you're listening to us, you're likely interested in Israel with hopes of traveling here soon. Well, lucky for you, we've got the scoop on Masa Israel Journey. With an amazing range of life-changing opportunities in Israel, Masa has so many different programs. They got gap years, academics, internships, volunteering, and even career programs. Masa really is the way to go. The pandemic didn't stop them either, promoting options to study remotely while living in Israel. There's no need to be fluent in Hebrew or break your bank account. They even supply partial funding, so you can make a positive impact on the world, and you can fuel your passion, and you can make your travel dreams a reality. So go to masaisrael.org, find out more. Check them out. I really, really recommend it. I was on a Masa program. Totally worth it. masaisrael.org. Israel is currently in the midst of a deadly Palestinian terror wave, the likes of which we haven't seen for years. 14 lives of innocent civilians have already been lost in 4 terror attacks, all in less than a month. In the meantime, merely 10 months after Bennett's government came to be, its foundations are already crumbling. A few days ago, Bennett lost his coalition's majority in the Israeli parliament, the Knesset, when his head of coalition and a member of his party, MK Idit Silman, announced that she can no longer be part of the coalition for ideological reasons. Indeed, Bennett betrayed his voters when he formed a coalition with Mansour Abbas's Ra'am party, an Arab party that some say is a sister to the Muslim Brotherhood organization. And now, when he lost his majority in the Knesset, some journalists claim that Bennett and his political ally Yair Lapid are relying on the Arab Joint List to save them from new elections. The Arab Joint List's members have a long record of statements and actions in support of terrorists. All that puts Israel and Israelis in turmoil, as many Israelis can't help but wonder when and where will the next terror attack be. We thought it might be insightful to talk to someone who unfortunately knows the grief personally. Yossi Tzur is the father of Asaf Tzur, who was murdered in 2003 in the horrific terror attack on City Bus 37 in Haifa in 2003. Since then, Yossi devotes his life to fighting terrorists and terror supporters. We're honored to have Yossi on the show with us today to talk about his son and to hear the perspective of a bereaved father on what our country is going through. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
So we have your son's photo here with
guy.
us, and right on your shirt as well. Yeah. So this was a long time ago, but
He didn't get the hair from you, obviously.
No, he didn't.
It obviously is with you till today. Every day, I'm assuming.
Well, every minute, not every day. I'm always saying that since the second that terrorist exploded on the bus and killed Asaf, since that second it became my task in life. Asaf was almost 17. He was in the 11th grade, coming back from school, and he had all his life ahead of him. He was supposed to finish school. He was supposed to go and do his service in the army. He was supposed to go and travel. He was supposed to go and learn. He was supposed to build up a family. His life was all ahead of him. And since that second that he died on the bus, it became my task in life to continue to introduce him to the world, to bring his picture, his personality, to make everybody knows that he existed. And I'm willing to go from place to place and talk about him and introduce him. And That's all the commemoration projects that I'm doing in his memory are intended exactly for that reason. I want people to see his picture, his face. I want people to know about him, to hear about him, and I know that people that eventually hear about him also remember him, and that's my goal in life. So, yeah, he is with me every second, and I'm willing to take it on and on and on, and there's no group small enough or a place small enough to talk about him and to remind people who he was. That's also why I'm going with the T-shirt and his picture. I threw out all my shirts at some point and made T-shirts with his picture, and I'm going with them. Work, private occasion, every day.
Really?
Every day and everywhere. Whether I'm at work or whether I'm doing private things, he is always on me and with me.
And it's like a beautiful. Is it a filter of a photo, or is it like a painted image? Is it a photo that's taken and made into a painting, or is it an actual painting?
It's an actual painting.
Ah.
One of the I did a few commemoration projects, and they are constructed layer on layer on layer based. I mean, I just decided I'm doing something, and then I wanted to continue it, and then so that's the third layer or the third stage of the project. My first one was the stones project. There is an old Jewish habit that if you go to visit someone in the cemetery, you lay a small stone on his grave, on his tombstone. And it goes back to old times when graves was just a pile of stones and not like we do today as marble. And it has a lot of origins. I'm not sure anyone knows exactly where it comes from, but I used to go a lot abroad on business, and whenever I would come back, I would bring a stone with me, and I would put it on Asaf's grave. And then one day I said, why am I doing that alone? And I sent out emails and publications, and I just spammed the internet with a pamphlet saying, my name is Asaf. I was killed in a terror attack. I was supposed to be released from the army at the age of 21 and to go and travel the world. Since I cannot do that, please send me a stone from wherever you are, so I can experience those places. And I was skeptic because you get a lot of spam. You do a lot of things which are no one even looks at, and took about 2.5 weeks, and it started to pour. It was amazing. I mean, it's a wonder I'm not divorced by now, because the whole house was filled with packages, small boxes, envelopes, whatever, and we got so many, and it was so important for me to open each one. It was a holy task for me, and people did not only send stones, they put in pages of text from personal stories that happened to them, and it was so moving to read those things. I mean, one girl told me that she had a good friend who died, and they didn't manage to do the trip together, but she did the trip, and she brought back 2 stones. One she put on her girlfriend's grave, and when she read my letter, she sent me the other one. I got stones from every famous place on the earth. Guys who went to the Berlin Wall and with hammers to take down pieces of it, they sent to me a small piece. I got like thousands of stones from about 75 countries, every famous site. One of the stones which I'm most proud of is the stone that I got from out of space. I got a small box with chips of a stone that I got from a retired engineer from NASA. who was doing some experiments and explorations with a meteorite that fell in Mexico in the 70s. It was quite famous. And after he retired, he had in his drawer a small box with a few chips of that meteorite that fell on Earth. And he said, when I read your message, I decided to send it to you. So I took that and put it. And if you look now on Asaf tombstone in the cemetery in Haifa, there is, I took a big plant pot, which is really big, and I put all those stones inside, and they are there near his grave, which personally for me was a big success to bring a piece of the world to him, because he couldn't go and see the world himself. And it was a huge effort and a huge project, and I so appreciate the people, because if you want to send me a stone from Australia, it's not for free. You have to go to the post, you have to pay money, you have to put a stamp on it. But people send stones with heartfelt stories, and it was so emotional, so exciting to get those and to read those, and that was an amazing project.
And the painting?
Okay, so after I brought a piece of the world to Asaf, I then decided to send them out and ask people to send me photos from where they go instead of stones. But it was a success as well. I got thousands of pictures that people took from all around the world. And then after I finished that photo campaign, I went into a stage where I said, when you have a kid who is 17 years old, and that was a couple of years ago, and you see your other children, I have 3 more sons, I see your kids are changing, you see new things in them, you see they are evolving, they are changing. And with Asaf, it was always the same photos and same clips that we had from when he was 17. And I was looking for something else. I was looking for something that will give me new things about Asaf. And I went to this guy, and it was the first one, and I said, can you draw him? This is his photo. Now, I don't know what you see in him. I don't know what you think about him. Draw him. And I immediately saw that everyone sees something else in the photo, and he's doing the painting in a different way. And then after a couple of paintings, I said to the people, try to make him older in the painting. This is his photo. Okay, good. Now try to make him older. And everyone took an angle. Everyone took another position, and everyone did something different. This one, for example, is a nice lady from California who read his website and knew that he was his hobby was surfing, wave surfing. So she decided to give him something which will make him more of a surfer, like with the hair, with the colors, and she sent me those. Some other people just made him a little bit older, and then it was it got to be an article in the newspaper, and for that article specifically, the newspaper took an artist and told him, look, make him 35. And
the age he was supposed to be.
In the age he was supposed to be at that time, yes. And then, I mean, I'm choking because you take 2 pictures, a 17-year-old kid and a 35-year-old man, and you look at them, and I mean, on one hand, it's so filling, to see him at 35 years old. On the other hand, it's just an image. It's just a painting. It's just something that won't happen. It's something that is totally imaginary, but yet I couldn't. I couldn't not do it, and it was an amazing thing. And I have in my house, I have a lot of pictures and paintings. Some of them are not even real paintings; they are like cartoons. Guys who do cartoons in the newspaper, and I told them, you do cartoon? Give me a cartoon. Let's do a cartoon. And everything I got, I saw something new in it. I saw something, changed in it. I saw something, and it was really something that I could, as close as I could get to really, raising a kid and see things evolving and changing.
It's kind of like they're each a representation of the possibility of what could have been, maybe in a certain way. Because when life gets cut off so suddenly, I mean, the future is, like you said, it's completely open. It could be anything. So maybe these are all of the different paths that Asaf could have taken. It's crazy to think, but he was maybe a little older than us, like 2-3 years older. He would have been 36 today.
Yes,
and that's the point about living here, I guess, is that the randomness, it could have been us, and maybe
God forbid.
God forbid, but it may be not. I don't know if us, but someone we know. I mean, I know someone who was almost destined to be murdered a few days ago in Dizengoff, right? So this is the life here, right? It's all a big, I don't know, crazy.
It's exactly like you describe it. I can tell you that on that bus, city bus 37, on that day, 17 people were killed, were murdered by a suicide bomber who went on the bus. And through the years, we got to learn more and more stories, and more families. And I can tell you Asaf's story. He came out from school with his girlfriend and 3 other people, two girls and 1 boy. And the other boy, he came to the bus, he stepped into the bus, and then he saw someone who he fought with the other day, and he said, "Guys, I'm waiting for the other bus. I don't want to see him or encounter him today." And when they got after a couple of bus stations, the 3 girls told Asaf, "Let's go down and have some lunch or something here." And Asaf said, "No, I'm tired. I'm going home. You go and have some lunch. I'll see you later." And those 3 girls, 17-year-old girls, they stepped off the bus, they crossed the street, and they heard the bombing, and they heard the ambulances running, and they heard everything. And I'm just the other day, I was waiting near my grandson's school, and it was really like a couple of weeks ago. And I meet someone, and she tells me, "Hey, your shirt, it's Asaf." And I say, "Yes." And she said, "I was on that bus." And I tell her, "Okay," and he said, "I had to meet the family somewhere, and I went on the bus, and my father called me, and he said, 'Look, I'm just missed you by two seconds. Get off the bus and join me in the car, and we'll go together.' And she said, 'But I paid for the bus already, so meet me there. Don't bother.' And he told her, 'No way, you get off from the bus now in the next station, and I will pick you up.' And she went off the bus, and he picked her up. And I was able to talk to her a couple of weeks ago. So, I mean, if you start to look at the stories, each one of the people that was on the bus, he wasn't supposed to be there. And if you look on those miracles of people who were saved just because they accidentally stepped off the bus or went off the bus, then, I mean, it's like you said, it's so random. You cannot know. I mean, you are walking the street, you don't know where it will fall on you, and I mean, this is kind of I don't know, maybe the fate that we are living with in Israel today.
Cursed with, yeah.
Yeah, so like a friend of mine from abroad told me the other day, like, some questions we barely stop to think about, but how can you live like that? How can we live like that with that burden of existence?
I must tell you, on one side, it's hard. It's not understandable. On the other hand, think about car accidents, which exist all over the world. And I mean, in many countries, where you have like drunk drivers, and you go out to the street and you get hit by something. So here it's like it's emphasized because we are so minded to it. We are, we don't want to accept it, because it's on top of everything else, and we know that those victims can be saved. Those victims are not, a destiny. Like if you say that you have a country with so many cars, then statistically you cannot avoid less than so many hits or accidents every year. But with terrorism, the thing that really makes me angry about it is that you can fight it, and you can do things about it, and we are not doing enough in order to do that. I mean, the most one of the most things that made me angry unfortunately after Asaf died is exactly the same thing which is being talked today in the news, the security fence. Because after we learned about the attack, we learned that the suicide bomber itself, he was a 21-year-old Polytechnicum student from Hebron, and he came to the village of Abu Dis, which is just near Jerusalem or touching Jerusalem. And in the morning, he crossed the gap between Abu Dis and Jerusalem, was picked up on a truck and brought to Haifa.
But Abu Dis, excuse me for my ignorance, but is it East Jerusalem, as we call it?
Yes.
So he had like what they call a certificate of...
No. He was from Hebron.
He was from Hebron. Okay. How
And
did he get from Hebron to Abu Dis?
From Hebron to Abu Dis, it's not a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And indeed, when he came into Jerusalem, the guy who picked him up in the truck and drove him to Haifa, he was from East Jerusalem with a blue ID card, what we call a blue ID card from East Jerusalem, which allows him to move freely in
They're
Israel.
not citizens?
So he smuggled him in? Like in the back of the truck or something? Like at the border they didn't see him?
No. The terrorist walked from Abu Dis into a junction in Jerusalem, and there he was picked up by the driver with the truck. This was one of the reasons that we started to shout, why aren't you building the security fence so terrorists cannot walk from Abu Dis to Jerusalem or from anywhere to other place? And we joined a movement that was led by the retired General Uzi Dayan, who was the not the chief of staff, but his deputy chief of staff, and he built up a movement to build a security fence. And we built the security fence. But what happened to it? I mean, how come that now, 19 years after the attack in 2003, and after the security fence was built, 2 of those 4 attacks that you talked about in the beginning were done by guys who came from Jenin or from other place, who not only walked through the fence, they drove a car through the fence, meaning that the fence who cost us, taxpayers in Israel, billions of shekels, basically today doesn't exist. And a terrorist from Jenin who wants to come to Tel Aviv, no problem. He gets in a car, he drives to a place where there is a gap in the fence, and he drives in. So this is not fighting terrorism. If the same problem that we had back in 2001, 2002, 2003 exists today, 20 years ago, we are doing something wrong. We are not fighting terrorism. We are fooling ourselves. We are lying ourselves.
So you think we should build a huge wall, like we did with Egypt, let's say, because you cannot compare the wall we built with the territories in 2003 with the one we built with Egypt, right? The one with Egypt is just, it's enormous. It's way more serious. So let's say we build something like that, and what do we do with the Gush Etzion, with all the settlements? Like, we leave them on the other side of the wall, or do we build a wall beyond the settlements, or? How do you solve this problem?
I have a deja vu to 2003, 2004.
Yeah, the
but
same discussions, huh?
Same discussion. First of all, I resent the term wall.
Okay.
The length of the security fence from the north to the south was around 350 kilometers, out of which only about 7 to 8% was wall, and the rest of it was fence, chicken wire fence.
Which is the problem, which what led us to...
Yeah, but it was built with electronical
Motion
measures, and it was supposed to be with a force like the border control that was supposed to patrol on the fence. And every time they took a little bit of money from that budget to put it somewhere else until the force that was supposed to be there took to be somewhere else, and the destruction of the fence was never fixed because there was no budget. And
it's hard for the military to protect with soldiers 300, 400 kilometer
and
patrol.
And that's one of the reasons that I told you earlier I got angry, because I know for a fact that inside discussions of the security system in Israel, those who make the decision makers, it was said that Israel can contain 300 killed people per year. Now, when it
what
comes...
years are we talking about?
2001, 2002, around that time...
Barak or Sharon era?
No, Sharon era. That was the time where the system fought against building the fence, and we fought for it. Because, I mean, the system thought that it will make the fence the border, and they didn't want to make the fence, because they said that will set a border that we cannot go back from. And this is why you asked earlier, what about Gush Etzion? What about this? What about that? The fence was built in a way that it will exclude maximum Palestinian villages and towns and whatever, and we live in the maximum number of Jewish settlements. But it wasn't meant to be a border. It wasn't meant. It was a security fence, and it was a fence, and it was meant to be a fence. And everywhere it was said that when a settlement between Palestinians and Israel will be done, the fence will be destroyed, and the border will be wherever they will agree about the border. But the fence with Egypt, which you have discussed, is a good proof that we can do it if we want to.
Sure.
But the problem is that in the Judea and Samaria, we don't want to, because we want to allow workers to come in, and we want to allow them
illegally.
I'm not
illegally.
saying, of course, illegally,
Yeah.
but
to make it clear.
But if you want the housing prices to go down in Israel, you need workers to build the houses. If you don't,
I heard China has 1 billion of them.
well, that's a different discussion and a different podcast. But I mean, it's not a simple thing. But eventually, what I'm trying to say, when I hear someone in the security system says the Israeli society can contain 300 killed people per year, I'm blowing up, because there is no price on earth for my son. There is no price for it. And when you're starting to put prices on people, when you're starting to put all kind of definitions and say, it's okay, no problem. If they kill only 2 here and 2 there, we will not respond. If they do this, we will not do that. And this is how we got to where we are today. This word in Hebrew, containment, is the mother of all evils. It's true for Hamas in Gaza. If they will shoot a rocket and it will fall in an open space and nothing will happen, then okay, we can contain it. But if it will fall into a kindergarten and will kill a few kids, then it will be a war. And what we did...
If it falls in Ashkelon, it's okay. If it falls in Tel Aviv... That's a war.
That's also something that I heard that when it was in Bnei Brak, the policemen, they only brought a few policemen. When it was in Tel Aviv, the whole army was there.
Yeah.
So I don't want to go there, but all I'm saying is, if you want to fight terrorism, then fight terrorism. If you don't want to fight terrorism, let's close the country and go.
So let's close the country because they don't want to.
But what I want to know is there has been a severe drop in the amount of casualties as a cause of terrorism in the last 20 years since Asaf's murder. Do you not see that as some level of success? I mean, it especially in the last decade. As while Benjamin Netanyahu was prime minister, I mean, there was, right? I mean, relative. In
2016, you had
I don't think
attacks.
anybody should describe it as within the limits that we're willing to accept. We should accept zero. But if we look at the numbers, we can say that we have done something right. No, or is that not safe?
I mean, it looks like it, but I don't think it is, statistically it's true. The thing is, and again, we are doing it by ourselves, is that when you don't have terrorism from Judea and Samaria, then you have Hamas firing rockets and you have like an operation every 2-3 years. But when Hamas, they now are building and they want to improve the situation in Gaza, they say, okay, we are not firing from here, but let's incite a little bit in Judea and Samaria, and let's have the terror come from there. So I think that if you look throughout the period, I mean, I issued a post on Facebook this week because I saw all the posts that are coming for a hit in Tel Aviv, an attack in Tel Aviv, an attack in Tel Aviv. It's so... Guys, in 2016, a guy came into a bar in Tel Aviv. He killed Alon Bakal and Shimon Ruimi. He then ran away. He took a cab. He killed the driver. And he was caught a week later in Wadi Alla. The terror attacks never stop. The motivation definitely didn't stop. And the fact that we are not controlling it, but Hamas from Gaza is controlling it, or the imams in the Temple Mount and the incitement is controlling it. This is our main problem. We are not in control of the war against terrorism, and we are not. But
absolute control. I mean, it's like they say, perfection is the enemy of good, right, or good enough. I mean, absolute success, right? Mission accomplished.
Dropping the
is not necessarily.
No,
even that. I don't think that would be absolute success because you'd start World War III, and probably by the end of it, I don't know if we'd be here.
But you'll annihilate the terror. That's the only, that's.
But what I'm saying is, absolute success is probably impossible. So, given that, are we? I mean, right? We have to ask, what is the best chances of the best success possible? Are we not? I mean. Speaking of the last 10 years, we've had, and again, not to diminish any value of life, but we've had probably in the last 10 years, 100, 200 deaths from...
If you don't count rockets.
No, from rockets and from terrorism and from in the past decade, whereas in the years that Asaf was murdered,
in 2003,
there was,
I think that you had 500 in a year or something
Definitely the period of what is called the second intifada in the years 2000 to 2000, let's say 5, 6, 7, it was a big increase in the number of deaths. But what I'm trying to say is, you are looking at the results, and I think that looking at the results is not doing good to the war on terrorism, because this is exactly our problem. If we have a year with, 2-3 people killed, then okay, we are good. So let's take the budget from here and put it in here, and let's take the budget from here and put it there, and eventually the war on terrorism decreases. And I'm saying we have some root cause problems in Israel that are not being treated. Look, basically back in the 70s, there was some location who wasn't known to everybody. I know few people known about it. This was the terrorist cemetery in some area where they have buried terrorists in unmarked graves. And that was one of the factors that we know help to prevent more terror, because the families and the terrorists themselves, they knew that they are going to be buried somewhere unknown to anyone, and their families will stay with the doubts and will not know where they are buried for. What happens today? A guy comes with a knife to Jerusalem, kills someone, being shot by the police, and 2 days later the family gets his body back to bury, and it becomes a big celebration. He's a hero, he's a shaheed, and the whole village comes, and 2,000 people comes, and all those young people who see the honor that he is getting and respect that he is getting are motivated to do more terrorism. Back in the years, and the security system knows it, and they all recommend it, destroying the terrorist house immediately was one of the most deterring measures that Israel could do. Look at it today. The Supreme Court, the Bagatz, is stopping everything that the army is trying to do. And we got to a situation where not the army, not the chief of staff, not the prime minister is running the country, but a couple of judges in the Supreme Court. They are running the country. And I can give you, I can give you a lot of items that each and every one of them will contribute a little bit to the war on terrorism. But when you don't do any of those, look at the conditions that terrorists are being held in the Israeli prisons. 5-star hotels, they are managing themselves, they are getting special foods, they are getting visits, they are getting...
They can have sex, right? They can have sex with their spouses.
It's
visits.
There
Conjugal visits.
There are conditions to it. One of the phenomena that increased a lot was they are smuggling sperm from the jail, and you can see most of the biggest terrorists have children. When you look backwards, you see they didn't mean their wives or spouses, but they have children, and
amazing.
And in big pressure of us, the bereaved families and the politicians, Israel passed a law to take off the amount of money that the Palestinian Authority is paying to the terrorists from the money that Israel is giving to the Palestinian Authority.
We have to explain this. The PA, our friends, our allies for peace, our partners, air quotes, Mahmoud Abbas, basically, they pay the families of each terrorist. So
a monthly stipend.
A monthly sum.
Which depends.
Yeah. On the success of the...
On the amount of years that he is being put in jail. Now, the amount of years that he's being put in jail is directly related to the crime or to the terror attack that he did.
If he died during the terror attack,
they still get money.
They pay a lot of money, I presume. So
look, a terrorist that goes into prison, that is being caught and goes into prison, he gets a monthly salary, which the family gets. It's a lot of money, especially if you compare it to the average level of salary in the Palestinian Authority. When he gets out from jail, and unfortunately, a lot of them are getting out of jail in all kinds of deals, like the Shalit deal, for example. They are getting a special amount of one-time amount for tens of thousands.
Severance package.
Something like that. And they are entitled to a job in the PA in levels, again, depending on what they did, in colonel level, general level, whatever level.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you look at the list of benefits that they get from the PA, it's
despicable. What do you suggest we do? Do you think that we should just eliminate these benefits, or should there be even harsher punishments for these types of terrorists?
I suggest that we start with something, because right now, I mean, there was like 2 weeks ago, there was an attack in Bnei Brak. And they said that the guy came through the fence. And they sent, I don't know how many soldiers. They said, now we are closing the fence with soldiers until we will fix the fence. And then 2 weeks later, the guy came through the fence and goes to Tel Aviv. So my feeling is that we are talking a lot and doing very little. And we need to decide that we are going to start to fight terrorism wherever it is.
Do you think the IDF is deterred from doing what has to be done?
It's a look, in Israel, the IDF, well, some people say that Israel is not a country that has an army, but an army that has a country. So, but it's not true. The IDF can do everything, given that he will get the order to do it. And I think that politicians are a bunch of cowards that do not want to go and do what needs to be done.
But we saw that in reality time and time again. First of all, we see that almost all generals coming out from the IDF and going to either politics or doing some, public, research or whatever, going to talk in talk shows, etc. We see that almost all of them come out with a very lefty, right, points of view. And turns out, in the IDF, it's basically they all
Not
become...
just the IDF, all of the security
the Mossad,
apparatus.
the Shabak not necessarily though, but the IDF specifically, all the ex-IDF chief of staffs became, almost all of them became heads of leftist parties. So and then you look back and you see that in reality, like in the operations in Gaza, you see that when Gantz was the chief of the IDF, he really did not want. So it's not only in the end the politician thinks about the committee that will judge him. Here in Israel, we had some famous committees after wars, right? It's called a committee, right?
It's a
commission.
Investigation committee.
Commission.
Yeah.
And so the politician thinks about it, right? So when the chief of IDF, he goes to the chief of IDF and tell, okay, we want to go into Jenin now and let's just F them up, okay? And the chief of IDF tells him, you cannot do that. This will cause a great uproar of violence, and I can't, when they investigate you, I will say that I was against it, right? So it's not fair, I feel, to blame only the politician, or am I wrong?
Well, it's a question of the chicken and the egg. Because the end result is very much like you describe it. But the question is the army and the politics and the politics system are advancing only those which they think will suit their views and will do what they want them to do, and not advancing those who are problematics. And we have a few examples of those in the years that we saw, that people who were just a little bit more right-wing, they were thrown out of the army. I don't want to say even Ariel Sharon, but also Ariel Sharon.
Mm-hmm.
Ariel Sharon did not become the chief of staff of the IDF because his views did not suit the government at that time. And this is the chicken and the egg.
He was also banned later from being the Minister of Security.
Yeah.
People don't remember, but he was actually banned.
He was not banned. He was forced to resign from the Minister of Defense, but the committee did not say anything about the future, and then he became the prime minister. But I think we have this is also a problem that we have, that if you look on the IDF today, you will see in the what we call, I don't know how do you say it in the army, but it's middle management, okay? In middle management, most of the officers of the Israeli army today comes from the right-wing sector. I don't want to say settlers, but from the right-wing settler. But when you look upper, from I don't know, colonel and above, you don't see them there. They are somehow vanishing, and there was a lot of things about the Wagner Foundation that is educating those soldiers. Look, I'm not saying to go and kill everybody. I don't suggest any drastic measures, but I'm saying when you want to fight terrorism, you need to fight terrorism. You cannot do it with your hand tied behind your back, and you cannot do it by saying yes, but let's contain it, let's not respond now, we'll respond at the time and the place that we'll decide to respond, we'll do it like that, this is just driving the other side to more and more and more, and people are killed eventually.
Do you think that we are in a better state? Is it fair to say that we're in a better state when we have a government that's led by very hard conservatives, meaning that's led by right wing, and a coalition that's made up of right wing and maybe even far right wing politicians, rather than a government that's in the center? I mean, definitely rather than a government that's in the far left, but rather than a government that's built from center parties and even leaning on an Arab party.
It's a hard question, because the last time that we brought up Begin to be the prime minister, the first thing he did was to return all Sinai and make the peace accord with Egypt. So on one hand, we are saying only the right-wing parties and the governments, they can do peace with the Arabs, because their followers will not throw them away or overthrow the government. And when there is a left government in power, they don't have the power to do what a right government can do. But it's a hard question. And again, I'm saying, I'm not talking about strategical measures or strategical war. I'm talking about tactics. Just today, this morning, in the government meeting that was held in Jerusalem, they decided, and I'm careful with the words, they said to explore the possibility to take terrorists and terrorist families citizenship,
citizenship. It's not even the citizenship. They want to take the benefits.
Social benefits.
Yes.
Social benefits.
But this is specifically because we had two kinds of terrorists lately. We had those who live in the territories, just to our most of our audience is in America. Maybe they're not familiar with those details. Some of the terrorists in recent attacks were from Judea and Samaria, so they're Palestinians or whatever you want to call them, without citizenship.
Full Israeli citizenship and benefits.
Some were Israeli citizens, equal like you, me, everyone, who are not occupied in any way, and yet they did some terror attack. And those Israeli citizens are eligible, like their families are eligible for social benefits.
Welfare.
So and again, my main point when I raise this issue is the government did not make a decision to remove those benefits today, yesterday. They gave out something so vague to explore the possibilities or to see what are the ways to do, because...
But do you not... I think it's... did we experience in the past terrorists from within Israel?
Yes.
How often?
Yeah.
I don't remember that there were two consecutive attacks by Israeli Arabs.
Yeah, in the Intifada.
Look, you had here a few weeks ago a good friend of mine, Tal Tamam.
Mm-hmm.
Her uncle, Moshe Tamam, was a soldier in the Israeli army. He was kidnapped by a group of 5 that came from Wadi Ara, and they all are Israeli citizens.
Mm-hmm.
One of them was released a year ago or something like that.
And not in a deal.
Not in a deal.
Just because time...
What I'm saying is
No, he was released And I can tell you who is to blame. Because President Shimon Peres, usually when a terrorist is being sentenced to life in prison, and it's because of terrorism and because of killing Israelis and because killing of an Israeli soldier, that's life sentence. No one will set it to a certain amount of years. What Shimon Peres did at some time, just again, politics was involved. He decided to set those Israeli citizens to 40 years, 35 years, 38 years, and he set those times without asking the family, without notifying the families, without letting everybody know. And suddenly we got to be 40 years after that terror attack. And the guy went home, and now he is married, and now he lives like, I don't know, 20 kilometers from the family that he hurt. And we had it starting from the 90s. I mean, I personally know because there was
It was actually the 80s, I think, even. Late 80s.
It was 84 or something.
Right.
84s. But I remember there was a guy, a 15 or 16 years old boy, Danny Katz, who lived in Haifa in the Dania neighborhood, and he went from his house to another friend's house, and a truck with Israeli Arabs who worked there in one of the buildings. They kidnapped him and they killed him, and they found him in some cave
Not to
in
mention
Galilee.
a year ago in the May events.
Yeah, but
I'm
of course.
doing hand motions on you.
Yeah, but
Like,
I think in the May events, many of them were Israeli Arabs, but I think most of the terrorist attacks, especially those that resulted in death, and certainly those in the last 10 years, have been conducted by Palestinian Arabs from the territories that are not Israeli citizens. And what I'm saying is, and this isn't necessarily true, that I wonder if in the last 10 years when Benjamin Netanyahu was prime minister, if we had two attacks like this and the issue arose, if it wouldn't have been more likely. And generally speaking, if it is not more likely that a government that doesn't include an Arab party and that rests on, four Arab anti-Zionist Arab members of parliament and left-wing and far left-wing parties, wouldn't a government that rests on right-wing be far more likely to pass that kind of legislation and say, okay, you know what, guys, we're stopping to pay social welfare benefits to these people?
If you apply pure logic and common sense, the answer should be yes. But we saw that with Benjamin Netanyahu as prime minister, starting from where his problem started to be, he stopped any attempt to change the structure of the Supreme Court. He stopped any attempt to do things which could have fought terrorism better. And I can tell you because I was involved in a few of those. The attack that killed Asaf in Haifa, I told you earlier, the terrorists came from Abu Dis. A guy with a blue ID card took him with a truck to Haifa. That was a crime family because the driver was one brother. In Haifa, we had two others. Those two others lived in Haifa more than 10 years. No reason to do terrorism. But the motives were just religious motives because they were fanatics, Islamists. And those two, one of them was a minor. So he was sentenced to 8 years. He finished his time and he went out. The other one was sentenced to 20 years. And the other guy is going to be released in 8 months, March 2023, because he was sentenced to 20 years on 2003.
Are you for the death penalty for terrorists?
It's a big question. I don't want to answer it like that. I think that in some cases where the crimes are especially heinous, when like the murder of the Fogel families in Itamar, where they killed the father, the mother, 3 children, one of them was a few months old. I think there is a good point in sentencing them to death, and then to have the whole world crawl here and ask us to change it to life sentence in prison. I think there are kind of considerations that we need to think about in doing that, whether we can benefit from it or not. But again, it's too big question. I won't tell you yes or no, just like that. But all I'm saying is that even with Netanyahu, back in 2013, Obama and Kerry, they came and they pressured Israel to go into discussions with the Palestinians, with Abu Mazen. And they had to offer a bribe in order for the Palestinians to come to the talks. And Netanyahu, instead of freezing the settlements, he decided to release terrorists because political considerations. So all I'm saying is it was decided to release some 100 and something terrorists in four batches, and they released the first, the second, the third. When the fourth came, they saw that all the terrorists there are Israeli citizens, blue ID cards. And then Bennett and his party stood and said, we are not agreeing to that. We'll break the government. So, I mean, the issue of Israeli citizens and the issue of how we handle it and how we are fighting it is totally neglected.
But let's go back to this government. I feel like we're beating around the bush, and I don't want to make your life easy about that. So I'll ask you simply. First of all, would you say, were you supporting, because there were many families, grieving families like the Hajjaj family, who advocated for Bennett and Shaked in the last election, at least, and maybe those before. Did you take part in such? Like, did you, or you don't wanna? Like,
no, I'm the Hajjaj family and some others like Dvorah Gonen from Lod, who lost her son.
So Tal Tamam, who was here, she was also advocating for.
They made a group called the Choose Life Forum, and they are very, very much active. I joined them. Mm-hmm. I became a member of it and part of it.
Did you support Bennett?
I support Bennett. Yes, I support Bennett. I supported him then, and I support him now. But
okay.
But again, they from their
they feel betrayed.
They feel betrayed because of the fact that they don't want to see Abbas and the Muslim Brotherhood in the government.
Okay, and how do you feel about that?
I don't want to see Bibi in the government.
Okay,
I don't want to see Bibi in the politics. I don't want to see Bibi at all.
Sababa. But how do you... I didn't ask about Bibi though.
No.
I'm asking about Abbas.
It's either you support Bibi and you're against Bennett, or you are against Bibi and I mean, so there is no middle way. I mean, either you are for Bibi and then you are against Bennett and you say he stole the elections, he did this, he did that, or you are for Bennett and you're against Bibi. I mean, this is...
Do you not feel that Bennett... I want to get back to Bibi because I do really think it's a question of... It is a question of Netanyahu. But do you not feel that Bennett stole the vote? Do you not think that simply the act of telling his supporters he wouldn't do XYZ, which was foundational to his platform, and then doing XYZ, which is sitting with the Arab Party and supporting Yair Lapid as a potential for prime minister and all of those things, you don't think that's backstabbing his voters?
I don't think he stole anything. I don't think he backstabbed anyone. I think that we got into a stage in the Israeli politics that whenever the lips of a politician are moving, you know who is lying. And don't take whatever they are saying as is because it's declarations for elections. Ignore everything. Look at the situation and decide if the situation that exists makes sense and you want to support it or not. Now, when I saw that Bibi was willing to sit with the with Ram party, the Muslim Brotherhood, and he was negotiating with them whether in back channels or himself. And when I saw that we are going the same way we did in the last 12 years that Bibi was in power, and I saw an alternative, I said we need to take the alternative. When you play chess, sometimes you sacrifice a pawn in order to get a bishop or to get a queen or
Sometimes
to win the game.
Sometimes you sacrifice the queen to save the king. I don't know. I don't play chess, but it sounds like something you would do.
in chess, it's
Sounds like something you would do.
Yeah.
No, it's a known rule in chess. You are sacrificing one in order to get the other. And once I made up my mind that Netanyahu cannot continue to do what he did in the last 12 years.
But there's a simple issue here that lying is bad, and it's, to me, one of the fundamental principles of life. Like, you should not lie blatantly, and he just lied. And what you're saying is
Bennett.
everybody's
We're talking about Bennett now.
You're saying everybody's lying. We can't trust anybody, but you're supporting.
Did Netanyahu lie to Gantz when they did the government together?
Yeah, but he didn't lie to his voters. You can lie to your enemy. That's okay.
So,
it's the cooperation principle. It's like, if you want, like, you shouldn't lie to someone you're trying to cooperate with, someone who gives you your vote.
you use the word lie, which I strongly against, because what I'm saying is, if you're a politician, you're running for election, and you are saying to people, look, I promise you I will do that. But then 2 weeks later, you see the results, and there is no way in hell you can do whatever you promised. You have to choose an alternative.
Bennett didn't promise he will boycott Bibi, unlike others.
Right.
He never promised that.
Because
he said he will sit with Bibi.
He didn't say he will sit with Bibi. He didn't say he will. He didn't say he won't. He said he will not sit with Lapid. He said he will not sit with this.
He never boycotted Bibi.
Guys, I'm agreeing with you. Politicians say things they don't mean, and they say things that will not happen, and they say things which are not true. I agree with you. But eventually, I'm looking at the situation and I'm asking, what is the best path going forward for Israel?
Sitting with Ram is the best path, though. I mean, those...
This is the sacrifice of the pawn.
Are Ram, in your opinion, are Ram terror supporters?
They are.
Okay.
But they are not, again, they are not supporters actively. They are supporters in the view that they have, and they are supporters in indirect way. But I don't want to defend Ram, because I'm absolutely 100% against them. But I don't know how to say it in English, but in Israel, whenever you go to election, you have to decide between Nevela and between Trifa.
Mm-hmm. The bad and the worst.
I think
it's words that Orthodox Jews will understand very good. It's you have to decide between the very bad and the very, 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 very bad. And what happens is that you don't, eventually, if you want to live here, and if you want to do things here, and if you want the country to progress, and you have to choose an option between one and between two. I think that what Bennett did, he chose the best option that he could have done, even though he had to compromise with promises that he made during the election progress. And we cannot do it otherwise. We had 12 years with Bibi. Bibi released in the Shalit deal 1,020 true terrorists. Among them, 3 terrorists which were sentenced to 17 periods of life in prison for direct responsibility to the attack that killed my son. And what he did was not logic in any way. And he did it only because of political reasons, because in 2011 there was a big protest here in Tel Aviv, and he wanted to make it go away, and he decided that he is doing the deal. I want to remind
release Gilad Shalit,
to release
people who don't know.
Gilad Shalit, the soldier that was captured and was kidnapped to Gaza, and it was a bone in his throat, and he had to get rid of it. And I want to remind you that for a lesser price, Olmert, who was the prime minister before him, did not agree to do that because he understood the implication. And this is, again, another point or another thing that Netanyahu did for political reasons and not looking at the consequences and how it will affect Israel in the long run. And for that, I'm saying whatever Bennett is doing, whatever he is doing, it's worth the price.
But I have to say, I really appreciate. I feel like you're very honest with us, and I think it's important. I really appreciate it. You're not evading the direct questions, but I feel like a gap, and that's the gap. Which, okay, you are saying that I'm with Bennett. He did what he could, and I hate Ram, but it is what it is. Okay. That's the given situation. But if you accept that reality, I don't see how you can act surprised or come with any expectations to the current government when it comes to do actions. Because let's be honest, some of the terrorists, they probably voted for Ram. So, and you know, so how can you expect Bennett to act against people who are being represented in his own government? You know what I'm saying? Does it make any sense?
Absolutely. But again, I'm always looking on the alternative. I mean, I don't want to even to compare, but there was many years ago a movie called Sophie's Choice.
Yes.
So eventually, what it comes down to two choices, and you have to choose one. You don't have a choice. You have a gun to your head, and you have to choose one. You have to choose one. So I mean, you can probably give thousands of reasons against and for each one of the choices, but eventually, as a person, you have to make a choice.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, here in Israel, the choices are always bad and are always hard and are always painful, but you have to make a choice. And that was my choice.
Okay, fair enough.
My worry is for you that distance makes the heart grow fonder. And you thought you got rid of Bibi, but after a few years of a break, he's going to come back with a vengeful popularity and be voted back in. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, I wish I had more power, but all I can do is put one vote every so many years and do my best. I'm again, look, Asaf Dat made me an activist in many areas. We are fighting, we are talking, we are convincing, we are proposing laws to lawmakers. We are trying to do whatever we can to improve the situation and protect our living children. But as politics goes, I have only one vote to put in the box every so many years.
How many, just so we end on kind of maybe a positive note, how many brothers and sisters does Asaf have?
Asaf was our middle kid when he was killed. He had an older brother who was at that time a soldier in the army. And he had a smaller brother who was 6 years old then. And 2.5 years after Asaf died, I'm saying by grace of God and technology, we managed to have another son. So I have 4 sons, 3 of them are with us today. And this year or this period was very moving for us because the kid that was born after Asaf was killed is exactly at the same place where Asaf was. He is in the 11th grade. He's almost 17 years old. He was actually born on the 4th of July. And he will be 17 years.
What's his name?
Eitan. And he will be 17. And the last memorial that we had just now on March 5th, which was the 19th anniversary of the death of Asaf, I said, look, Asaf got to March 5th when he was an 11th grader and didn't manage to continue. You, tomorrow, will pass him. You will be in the 11th grade on the 6th of March, on the day that Asaf did not get to. And just in a couple of weeks, Asaf was supposed to be, Asaf's birthday was April 27, which is just in a few days. And he was supposed to be 17. He didn't get there. And I said, you will be 17. You will be 17 in just a few weeks. And I don't know, it's a touching moment to see how this kid that was born after Asaf died and never met him and knows about him only from pictures in our stories is now bigger than him and older than him and will continue.
Can you tell us like one vivid, beautiful memory you have, you and Asaf?
Well, Asaf was very, very special. We traveled a lot. We lived abroad for a period, and we had beautiful times, together. But one of those vivid moments that I want to to say is when we were. My two sons at that time and me were in the kitchen, and my older one is he's a cautious one. He's very serious, and they had an argument. Those two, if they can jump from the table to the floor. They were like 5 years old, 3 years old. They were very small, and my older son, he said to Asaf, I think we can do it, but you should try first. And Asaf, he was fearless, absolutely fearless. So as a 3-year-old, just climbed the table, and before I even managed to take out a word, he jumped down and just to look the smile on his face, after doing that was amazing. So. And he was like that. He was trying anything. I'm always saying that Asaf lived his life like he knew something. I cannot explain it, but he lived his life like he knew that he will not get to be a grown-up person. And as a child, he did whatever he could, to challenge himself and he was doing everything, bikes and skateboard and wave surfing and whatever he could, to take advantage of the time and to take the maximum out of life. And
what can be said?
May his memory be a blessing, and may he live on through those memories. Thank you so much
for coming and sharing. Yeah, we really appreciate it.
And how can people kind of learn more about Asaf and maybe help with your endeavors?
We have a small website. Asaf had a nickname called Blondie, and I've put together a small website which is www.blondi.co.il, and there you can see just pictures, photos, read a little bit. It's a bilingual site, English and Hebrew, and you can even, click and write me if you want to.
You do lectures, like you do Zoom events, you do...
Well, not Zoom events, but yeah, we talk to groups.
Can people reach out for a lecture by you is what I'm asking.
They can.
Communities and...
We lecture to young people. We sometimes bring groups to the cemetery In Haifa, it's a unique thing in Israel. We have a plot in the cemetery which is only terror victims. So it's more impressive than, like when you see one here, one there. And we bring groups there and we talk to them and explain to them and answer questions. So, it can be reached through the website.
Okay, thank you so much for coming.
Yossi, thank you. Thank you very
Really
much.
touching. Really touching.
Thanks.
And guys, thanks for listening.
Thank
See you
you
on the
for
next one.
listening. See you next time. Bye, guys.
Bye.